Hi Akash, good evening.
Good evening. Hope your week has been going well so far.
Yep, mostly good.
Good to see you here, and thank you, first of all, for sparing your time of the day to spend with us and to share some insights with us. Good to have you here.
Who doesn't like to talk about themselves? So obviously, I'm as happy as you are, I think, to make this connect today and have this discussion.
That's a great way of putting it, Shisha. Uh, Let me start off by introducing you to our audience present over here this evening, and then we'll kick it off with a few questions.
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar today. So, we have with us an esteemed personality from the field of tech and analysis. She's Shirsha Ray Chaudhuri. She's a highly accomplished engineering professional. She has over 30 years of diverse experience. It spans multiple industries and domains. She's currently serving as the Director of Engineering at TR Labs, that is Thomson Reuters. Sisha has held key roles in different organizations such as Mercedes-Benz Research, especially Nokia Networks, Alcatel-Lucent, and her expertise encompasses various technical areas covering big data analytics, telecommunications, software development. She has made significant contributions to the advancement of call processing software for 3G networks and handsets for Motorola devices. And throughout her career, she has shown a keen interest and an eye for enabling data projects, particularly within the telecom sector. Uh, Additionally, her tenure at Oracle India has further developed her skills in scripting, even niche scriptings like Perl and release management. So, welcome, Shisha, to this talk for the evening. Can you tell us, to begin with, about a little bit about your journey into the field of engineering and how did you get started with this career option? What brought you to engineering and what got you invested in it?
I will have to be very honest, Akash. Engineering was not my first choice. Even as a kid, I was really excited by, there was this TV serial, I think, which used to be called Doctor. And so, at that point of time in my childhood, I did want to become a doctor. Right. And even I think few days back, somebody at work, they were running this quiz which said, if you weren't an engineer, what would you be? Surprisingly, many people did say doctor. So it's not a phenomenon which just happened only with me. But the thing is, I think sometime after my 12th standard marks were out, and back then the BITS Pilani admissions were based not on a separate entrance exam, but on the 12th standard marks. And the marks that I had got, I was incredibly lucky, and it gave me a seat in a very good discipline in BITS Pilani. And people told me, does it make sense to pursue medicine if you've got such a good seat in such a good college? And I thought, okay, maybe it doesn't make sense when so many people are saying this, right? I think it was just maybe like a handful of naysayers at that point of time. My uncle who said, but you said you're going to become a doctor and treat us. So I said, no, I'm not. So that was that time when I took the leap to engineering, Akash.
No, that's a great and reassuring story. I'll tell you why many of the students who come to engineering, who I also interact with, they come from such background. They have been
Yeah,
into medical and then come over here. So I think career is safe for those people if you're hearing us talk. Uh,
yeah.
that's a unique foray into engineering. So after you got into it and you decided to make a career out of engineering, what were some early influences that probably shaped your path or gave you a vision for years to come in this profession?
Um, I think there were role models, Akash. There were really good role models among family, friends, and others who had done engineering and pursued, really good careers both in India and outside India. There were also, I think, folks from college, like seniors, who were, pursuing really good opportunities, either working or, going for higher education, and all of that was really inspiring. But if I again have to be very honest, what really gave me a kick, right, more than following their path, was we used to have a course right from our first year called as computer programming. And so back then they used to teach us C and maybe a little bit of C++. Python wasn't a thing then. Java came a little while later. So it was mostly C. And it was during the tests, the C programming tests, like we used to have these tests where they give you an online project to work on in an hour and things like that. I used to finish in half the time, and I used to get a kick out of it because, here were my batchmates who were like, furiously typing away and trying to get the thing to work. And it seemed very easy for me. And I was like, if this is going to be so easy, I should just do this as a career. Right? So that's how it was.
So in a way, you were the topper who everyone talks about in those memes.
No, no, not really a topper. I think I just what do you say? I like logical reasoning even today. And I think programming to me was an outlet which let me put some of that, logical reasoning in the form of code. That's all.
That's lovely to know. Glad it did give you that kick because we have with us a talented individual after all of these years.
Yeah.
So, talking about years, with nearly 3 decades of experience and that too spanning different industries, how has your journey changed over all of these years? So, you went from domain to domain, or you went from project to project. I'm sure you have had
Yeah.
plethora of experience across different things. How do you think switching from one domain or from one company or organization to another is different? What are some key aspects to keep in mind?
Sometimes it was deliberate and sometimes not. And that's the story, right? Like sometimes you have a choice and sometimes you don't. So just after college, it was not easy for me to actually get a job, by the way. I mean, not just that, 2002 was, close to the heels of 2001 and the 9/11, and, there were, certain economic conditions back then. But even otherwise, there were, placements going on in our campus. And I don't think I made it very easily with an offer, right? It took me a bit. I remember that. And I'm still grateful that the failures, I think, make you more humble and, really grateful for what comes after that. But my first job was with Oracle. And really I had very little expectation of what was going to happen in Oracle. However, it was in a new city. It was with so I had to move from Bangalore to Hyderabad. So it was with living with new people, going to office every day, and trying to pick up things and deliver on them, and with mixed ages in the teams, right? So all of that was, I think, after college, a very novel experience. You are really excited by the taste of money that you're earning, I think, after college. But even more so, I think that you are doing something which somebody's going to pay you for, that you're going to make a difference as part of your career, right? So that bit was definitely very exhilarating. I remember even now. And then you mentioned that, the shifts, right? I wanted to move from Hyderabad back to Bangalore. My parents were here, and this is where I wanted to come back. So I remember moving back to Bangalore at that point of time and taking the job at Motorola. Again, that was very nice again because we were developing handset software. You will probably find this really funny now, but back then, this was, I think, 2003, 2004. Motorola was still a handset company. They were developing a handset which would have your GSM, that's your phone calls, as well as Wi-Fi, which was unheard of back then. The phone looked like a soapbox. It was, quite thick, and we used to have to develop the software for it. It was a lot of fun, and it was innovation at its peak. But that phone didn't go anywhere, right? So the team got disbanded, and we were moved to different projects. But we learned a lot during that. Like, unfortunately, the product didn't make it, but yeah. And it was, I think, after that team got disbanded that I moved to Lucent Technologies and, spent the bulk of my career there. We were developing, like you mentioned, 3G call processing software for 3G stacks. And sometime during that time, I think Alcatel bought Lucent, or merged with Lucent Technologies, and we became Alcatel Lucent. Those were also the years where I could, thankfully, thanks to the flexibility in my job and thanks to my really supportive managers and peers, I could, have a family. I could have a, back then, hybrid working wasn't a thing, but I had the flexibilities of, working from home as well as going to office for some time, right? So I could balance that bit really well. And as I think close to the end of the 3G era, Lucent Technologies was selling off that bit again. And so I think back then I was desperately hunting for a job. My skills were not market ready. I think maybe maternity and the other habits that I had developed, which means I wasn't keeping in touch with technology. I found it very difficult to find another job, but thankfully I did, which was again in telecom. But then that job luckily gave me a window to the world of data. Right, we were working with customers who wanted to do more with telecom data, enable location-based services, and things like that. And so thereby, that gave me that window of opportunity that I should pick up something new, a new skill. And that's when I started to learn more about data science. I did a course from IMB on data science, and that took some effort, because if you've stopped studying, you get into working, it takes some effort to come back to the rigor of academics. And to add to that, it was one of those executive programs, so like you had your day job and you had assignments and projects to deliver. But that was fun, and definitely a lot of learning, a lot of good inspiration from the colleagues with whom I, kind of did the course, as well as the professors. And then I wanted to shift into a more data-focused role. And thereby, I think the next set of jobs, if you see, are little more deliberate from there on. So I could come back to Nokia Networks, work with the same manager whom I had left in Lucent Technologies, Alcatel Lucent days, and try to build out like a data platform for him. And after that, I think I continued that same platform like story when I went to Mercedes-Benz. We were setting up a data lake for the different commercial vehicle teams, different geographies. It was during that time that we also started doing putting models live in production, seeing them impact live situations. And so what could happen if like a customer support is trying to predict the root cause of a problem that the customer is describing, and what are the consequences of getting that wrong, right? So that was very exciting. And then it was around that time, I think, that again, the company had split, where Mercedes-Benz and Daimler Trucks, they split around that time that I moved out of Mercedes-Benz.
This is quite interesting. So there is a pivotal point where you shift into data.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about it? How did you prepare for it? How was that shift like initially? I'm sure it must be a piece of cake for you now, but how was it initially? Was it intimidating? Was it exciting, or all of the above?
It was very scary to not be market ready for a job, Akash. That was the trigger, that I have to pick up new skills. And given that I was in projects where we were looking at slicing and dicing data, so it had to do something with the data. And they were doing like predictive maintenance of network elements. So it had to do with the data. I tried to do a bit of self-study. Back then, this was, I think, 2013 or 14. The Coursera's and the Udemy's were not that prevalent back then. And so I tried to do a few YouTube videos, Khan Academy videos, and things like that back then, but it was just scratching the surface. I knew I needed professional help, so I decided to invest in a course. Right, one which would put me through the rigor and through the fire in order to be able to get it. So I think it was the personal need to be employed, to be marketable. That was one. But also, of course, I think I saw a future with data science, right? Far beyond the hype that, it's one of the best jobs to have. Not just that, but I also felt that here's a potential. I mean, this is going to go a long way in terms of what it's going to mean for our industries and our economies. So it was a very, I think, researched investment that I did, that I, when I went to pick up these skills. It was not easy because I had small children back then. I had a day job and I had, assignments and projects like I mentioned. But I was being incredibly scrappy, and somehow I think the course managed to go through. We managed to finish our projects and assignments and pick up a lot of new skills, I think.
That's perfect. That's actually a great leap of faith you have taken, and I must commend you for it. And I think you're reaping the benefit for it now at this point, Shisa. So we have a couple of questions from a few participants. Guys, you can ask in the chats. Let them ask in, and whenever possible, we will just interject the questions over here. You can ask your queries in the chat space, and I'll be sure to pass them along to Sesha, who can address those. So let us continue with our main discussion. You have mentioned a very interesting thing about how data was important in your project, and that's what pushed you. And you mentioned about being afraid of not being market ready. So I have a very relevant and related questions, especially from the participants' point of view for it. How do they know in this ever-changing world of generative AI, chat GPT, new models coming in every day, new things being heard, the jobs are going away, there is Devon, there is this, that, XYZ. So there is a whole atmosphere of uncertainty, I would say, again, at this point. It's an exciting space in tech right now where a lot of opportunities are abound our way, but also an equally fearful one for people hoping to start their career or transition their career. So how do they know which skills are going to be relevant if they choose to invest their time today, like you did at a point of time? What things to invest their time in, what to pick up, what to learn, and then what other things they can probably learn along the way on the job?
Give a little bit of an ikigai-like answer there, right? If you remember in ikigai, it is about those four circles and how they intersect, and it really, life's decision making is really like that, right? So I think the first thing is to really introspect and find that one thing which excites you and you're able to do it well. I mean, it excites you because you can do it well, right? What is that one skill? And it's fine if it's not AI or programming or whatever. Is it UI related? Is it creativity? Is it sports? What is it that you really get excited and you're passionate about? And it's not just one single spike, but it's a sustained passion. So I think it's important to find that, right? And also maybe find adjacent to that, how does this become useful to society? Right? If it is sports, how can you, participating in sports, become useful to society? Are you more of an organizer? Would you like to do more of this? Are you more like you would like to train others? What is it about sports that you're passionate? Or if it is, let's say, UI development, what is it about UI development that gives you a kick and is also going to be useful to society, right? And I think very close to that, it's important to see what are people paying money for, right? And really investing in that next opportunity is about all of these three things coming together. And so if I have to translate this to what this meant in my life at that point of time, I liked programming. I liked working with, building things to make things come together. And like I said, I was really always passionate about logical reasoning. So if that is my passion, that's my excitement, and I could stay up late to just do that. What's adjacent to that is maybe if I built things for this world, I was being useful to society, right? Through the companies, through the solutions that we build, whatever. And even close to that, what are companies, what sort of jobs are companies paying for? There were tons of openings in the data space and not so much in the telecom space at that point of time. Like I told you, with just telecom skills, I was finding it very difficult to find a job. So, which meant that, what is it that I had to really research, what are companies looking for now? And hence the coming together of these three things was that I had to take my programming skills and my interest to the next level and know a little more about statistics and data science, right? And that's how that course. And even with that course, Akash, to be very frank with you, it's not just the algorithms or not just the data science or statistics bit that really excited me. It's about, how that got built out as a solution and then made a difference to a business or an opportunity or something like that, right? Like the coming together of it in order to prove something somewhere, right? So like that outcome was very important to me, and not just, how does this work?
Got that. So, Shirsha, so you basically looked at all the four aspects that you mentioned and took a decision for yourself. Uh, First of all, self introspection or introspection in general, self introspection is a rhetoric, takes a bit of time, but purely in terms of tech, talking from your experience and your current projects that you are in, what would be, let's say, the top three skills or subjects or maybe topics that you would advise the students to focus on, especially if we are talking about maybe final year college students or people just 1 year into their job, if they are looking to transition into this analytics, but what can they really focus on?
These people who are already like pursuing software developer jobs,
Yeah.
if that's the case, then I would strongly advise them to look at how using AI enabled efficiency benefits, maybe the domain that they're working in, the way they do their work, is like one of the hottest topics today, right? Also, maybe I think, again, it's a little bit introspection, but also maybe it's important to know what do they want to do next, right? Are they looking at building something? Like some people are very passionate about, being part of a startup or building something from scratch someday. Some people, on the other hand, want to be climbing up the corporate ladder. So depending on what you see yourself growing into over the next 3 years, you also want to take that into consideration as you're thinking of the next skill that you want to acquire, right? And so sometimes, let's say I'm database developer, right, or a database software developer. Maybe what I then want to know is, are there AI enabled efficiencies possible in the space? Is something going to change around here? Are there databases which are more in the workflow or in the space with these all AI enabled solutions? Are they something which is more natively possible? So that's an area. But I'm not saying that you should stick to database only. You probably have to know adjacent pieces as well, and sort of become like a expert in your team or in your area, right? It's very important that for your growth, that you are perceived as like an expert, and then you're able to go towards that direction. And that can happen as you acquire more knowledge. I mean, people will naturally gravitate to knowing more about you, and you get plugged into important projects and things like that.
Makes a lot of sense, actually, Shirsha. I think that's a perfectly holistic advice that you've given. Now, when you are recruiting for individuals in your team, be it in technical capacity we are talking about,
Yeah.
what are some qualitative aspects of the person that you're looking at when hiring them? And of course, some technical skills that would be at the top of your preference
Yeah.
when you are interviewing someone or maybe finalizing someone.
Yeah. I think the number one skill I really go for, Akash, is I like attitude. Attitude is number one. I mean, a lot of it can make or break with having the wrong attitude. So sometimes arrogance is very putting off. No matter how great a developer you are, the team is not going to do well if just on one person's shoulder. So sometimes it's the attitude of the person. Sometimes it's also the aptitude, right? Like what that person brings to the table, right? What capabilities that person brings based on his prior experiences, based on his previous roles and responsibilities that he has done. The other thing that I really look for in a candidate is problem solving. You yourself mentioned that this is so ever changing. It is overwhelming to kind of keep in touch always. What is super critical is, I think, to know why something is working and why something is not working. Maybe more so the latter than the former, but also, like both, it's important to know. And so problem solving, I think, is very important as an engineer, as a technology person. And the fourth thing, if I'm allowed to list, is basically how quickly can you learn a new thing, and what are your steps to doing that. So I typically ask the person, what is the recent thing, new thing that you have tried, or what made you go for it, and how did you go about it. Sometimes it is, a superficial answer, and you can make out that this person does something only when assigned or pushed into, and sometimes it is something that they even passionately go after, right? It could be very wrong, like something that they're trying doesn't make sense, but the fact that they are pursuing they are in its pursuit is itself very refreshing. So for me, these four things stand out, and I think most people whom I've met have all of these in very good levels. You mentioned technical skills. I would have said Python, awareness of the cloud, the ML lifecycle, working with data. These are definitely technical skills that are important. But then the skill in that chart, right? There are new ones which keep getting added, right? If they are slightly senior on the ladder, I think we definitely look for their design skills, their ability to architect, new solutions, or maybe bring in aspects of stability and good design over an existing system. How do you build systems with AI in them, right? So these are little more at the senior level that we look for ideas from folks.
Got that. Yeah, I think that's very important thing to take note for, especially for the final year students that we have with us, and it will greatly help them in preparing better for the roles of today and upcoming roles as well. There are a few audience questions. I would like to pick up a few and maybe
Yeah.
can address them. Let's start with an easy one. They're directly asking, which programming language are you using currently, or you suggest to master R or Python?
Python.
Python, obviously, for its ubiquitous applicability. And one of them, Kartikeya, has asked, do you think upskilling based on market is important, or upskilling based on your own interest or hobbies or liking is important? And according to Kartikeya, market is dynamic, so the requirements would be changing from time to time. As you also mentioned, pointed out, I've also mentioned, it's ever changing. So which one should they go for? Should they listen to their heart, or should they listen to what the market says and the demand dictates?
There's a story here, Akash. There's a person whom I know, and like I used to mentor him for a very brief while. It didn't work out, like that equation didn't work well. He was a content developer, so he made videos, okay? And his passion was content development and videos. He was really good at it. He could pick up new tools, new techniques, and bring in very refreshing, engaging videos. The challenge where him and me, we didn't get along, was I kept nudging him to acquire adjacent skills. I said, this is not enough. I mean, you have a depth, yes, but as you grow, you perhaps need to become a little bit of a T. You maybe want to know, like, how can people do this on their own? How can people kind of convey the mood in a sentence, and something can come up, or is it possible? This is even before ChatGPT and video kind of LLMs that we have today. And so he refused. He said that's not how content creation works. So you see, right? So we had like a lot of conflict, challenge, and conflict discussions. And similarly, I'm not pushing him to become a developer, but I did want him to be, little more aware of, let's say, techniques, or maybe like what are the stumbling blocks in having like a smooth video. Like if somebody else did it, what would go wrong? Right? I mean, what are those things that they don't know? How can we make this whole process, faster, smoother, better? Can there be, better formatting, packaging, whatever, right? So there were different dimensions that we could have gone into, but he would keep on resisting, right? So, so to come back to your question, right, should I follow my heart? So he only followed his heart, right? But then that blindsided him into maybe what else is out there, and maybe to what could really open a door for growth for him.
Right.
That is, maybe even I didn't know the answer then, right? Like maybe, but it certainly didn't help just remaining stuck in this is what I like and this is what I'll do. I mean, if you're content, that's fine, but he did want to grow. So that's where, I really could not help him. So to answer your question, Kartika, I think, it's important to listen to your heart and to know what are your strengths. You absolutely should. But it's also important to know like what is the market like, what are they, what skills are they looking for, and how you in your domain, how you scale up there. What are those adjacent skills, maybe if you acquire, it makes your profile more robust and stronger. You also know this is what a recruiter is going to see.
Right. So basically being a bit smart and adaptable along with being good
Yes,
at what you
yes,
love, of course.
yes, absolutely, Akash.
Yeah, so that's absolutely important. And one of the other questions that we have, it was a question that I would have asked anyways, is many people have this notion of, and you also pointed out in your career when you wanted to switch, you went out, found a course which has the rigor required to give you that experience, and then that helped you make the transition. So, what is the role, especially with all of these online certifications available today, Udemy or other such certifications, of adding them to your portfolio, to your profile? Do you think it helps in getting hired, or it doesn't really add much value, or does anyone really hire on the basis of these certifications? And would you recommend to add
I
them?
think it's only on the basis of the certification, Akash, right? It should be certification plus the skills that you have acquired, which means you can now do that new skill, right? I mean, and as with even your other degrees, right? Yes, I mean, I think having a degree will definitely get you surfaced in the hiring pipeline, but I think it's also about being able to translate the questions that are there in the interview and the session to what you've learned, and to be able to answer them, right? It's nobody's going to give you a job just based on the degree and just based on the certification, for sure. It is definitely related to the skills that you will acquire, and that you then also translate to make them, how do they transfer to the problem that you're asked to solve, for sure.
Right, absolutely. So the skills and the certifications to show for it. I mean, it can maybe give them a foot into the door, but will definitely not land them the job if they can't justify
Yeah,
what they've learned. Right.
yeah.
Um, Absolutely. So some lovely answers from you, Shisha. It's been a great discussion so far. Now, many of these people are, from the questions what I gathered, are interested in knowing what can be that one language or what can be that one skill or subject that they can learn that will really give them sort of a job guarantee. Now, to be real to all of them, there is nothing that will guarantee a job, as you just mentioned. There's nothing that will guarantee a job. It's more the mindset, right? So going away from the technical discussion for a bit, what are some daily life habits that you have maybe incorporated or that you continue to aspire to incorporate in your life? Some small habits that can help, that have helped you, in fact, to reach where you are and that you think comes a long way.
So the habit didn't come like on its own. I told you I had, not so great circumstances where I struggled to find a job. And so that made me realize that I had to be latest, right? So I think that was a trigger to kind of ensure that I earmark time in my week where I am studying something, right? It could even be, like a soft skill that I am studying or picking up and developing, but there should be something. So weekly, I ensure that I am blocking time for my personal growth. It could be it could be podcasts that I listen to. It could be biographies that I read, or it could even be somebody's interview that I'm listening to. But nonetheless, it connects some dots, creates new wirings in the head. And so I think that's a very important habit to have, right? Like this, continuously ensure that there is some new wiring that is happening. It could even be a skill, right? Which is, I think, at a junior level, it is very important that you acquire skills and capabilities that make your profile really robust. But I'm saying it's not just necessarily just skills. It could even be soft skills and the rest, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. So you have mentioned about attitude, and you have mentioned about this point softly in your answer about habits as well. So how can someone strike that balance essentially, where they're confident but not arrogant, where they're humble yet they're not too submissive? How can people basically balance the art of walking that thin line?
It's difficult, Akash, but I think experience sort of gets you there, isn't it? Like you are confident, and then you have a fall, and then when you're getting up again, then you're maybe at flat line again. So somehow maybe it's the aggregation of experiences. But I must tell you this: I've had a lot of batchmates, colleagues who were striking the right balance even from like the very beginning, and I used to always admire them and kind of learn how they do that they know this so well, but they have the humility as well, right? Again, I think I would advise humility, introspection, which kind of helps you see and develop that self-awareness, right? How am I saying this? Am I being the loudest in the room? Can I, like, if I'm the loudest in the room, can I take everyone along with me? Right. So I think that's a very important skill to have as you grow up, and you are able to take people along with you, because only then are you perceived as a natural leader, right?
Right, absolutely, absolutely. That's very important point that you mentioned, taking people along with you. So having led several teams over the years, what are some challenges or frictions that you have faced managing people, maybe with your colleagues or with people junior to you who report into you? What are some things that have come up from the point of view of maybe people management, and how have you tackled them? If you can give a couple of examples, anonymous, of course.
Yeah, anonymous only. I have been very fortunate, Akash. I have never had unmotivated people. So what I mean by that is, it's very challenging, I imagine, to drive energy into a person, right? Thankfully, there have been very rare occasions where I've needed to do that, and maybe they really had a personal thing going for them for whatever reason, and then that didn't work out for them. Mostly, I have had people who are extremely energetic and motivated, and they want to do this and that, right? So I think in that case, the challenge then becomes to kind of maneuver them in the right direction. And that's a much easier challenge than if they were, not energetic at all to try something new, right? Or to put the end through, or, for whatever reason. And I'm also mindful that people have off days, and, they're having their own ups and downs. There are issues maybe in their personal lives or whatever. And then, that somehow needs to come to balance with the, with what self they bring to work. But on an average, I've mostly not had to work with people who are not energetic. So going back to one of your earlier questions, what do I look for? I really also look at the energy of the person, the enthusiasm that they bring to, like, even when they talk about, let's say, one of their favorite projects from the past, I really want to see that spark in their eyes. Like, I did this because I was seeing this and this happen. And so, like that, and there are, like, when I ask them questions, what initiatives did you take to on your own? Like, I really want to hear a passionate answer there.
So vibes matter, basically,
Vibes matter,
in
yes.
modern link. But that's a really good and smart way of screening people, actually. If they're not passionate about something that they have been involved in,
Yeah.
probably they have done it on a surface level. That's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
take notes, guys. This is also a way and one of them has asked, do we need to learn a little bit of acting? I think it was in this context.
No, but it comes out if it's acting, Akash.
Yeah.
It's difficult to, passionately talk about something that where you didn't really have it. Like it's not as you talk about the smaller details, I think those points come out really.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, now, because a large portion of the crowd today are college students or people who are in college currently, they're a bit confused about how to go about getting an internship. It can be really hard. They don't really have the right sort of guidance in college, quite
Yeah.
obviously, to know what is relevant in market, what is not so relevant in market,
Yeah.
how should they be chasing internships, or maybe getting a mentor like yourself who can guide
Yeah.
them. So can you give any suggestions regarding that? How do they get to know what is working in the industry? Because the world is different. You
Yeah.
will also be knowing that the world is entirely different when it comes to college education. I mean, it does teach you concepts, but then industry environment, the work culture, along with the dynamic mindset you need to have. How can they get a glimpse of that? Probably someone from the industry to mentor them. How do they network, connect, and also how do they find internships where they can actually get a feel of that?
There are, if you go best way to go after internships from your college or university, I think there are two known ways. One is, look at a pet project that you could work on your own, right? So maybe Kaggle and the other contests, that hackathons that keep coming up. I know DevPost and Meta, like they have a very good hackathon as well. So like look at a pet project that you could start on. And I will tell you, right, the first one is going to be very difficult and you will give up. The second one less so. And so eventually you make a habit of it and of, going to a contest, trying something out and proceeding till the submission. You don't even have to win, right? So I'm just saying go through that whole cycle. What happens by virtue of that is you would have picked up several skills, right, of analyzing the problem, researching on this on the internet what could be a good solution, starting from one which makes sense and then building over it to kind of see where this aligns with the problem statement at hand. So that I think is then something that you could add to your resume, that I have worked on this, I participated in this contest, here's the git repo of what I submitted to it. And believe me, that's a very, very good, like you remember the initiative that I was talking about. So this is really one of those. The other very good avenue, and so eventually I think this means that you will get better and better at it, and then you get, maybe one day winning that contest as well. The other avenue, Akash, which I've seen, people, it work out for people are the meetups, right? We are very fortunate in Bangalore that there are, tons of meetups, but then this is not a Bangalore story. I know really good meetups that happen in Chennai, that happen in Delhi, and many other cities, Hyderabad as well. And so maybe the meetup is an opportunity to look at what are some of the other cool stuff happening in that particular domain, who's working on what. It's a good opportunity to ask questions of people who are presenting and then become a little more visible, attend conferences and events, and often conferences give even like student discounts or sometimes even free passes, right? So that helps you get that exposure as well as, I think, become visible to some of these opportunities. Not to mention, I think there are also like Internshala, a few such platforms as well, which.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's going to help them and point them or nudge them in the right direction. It's all about going through the process and the journey. There are really no shortcuts to take over here. Not much that can be done. One has to go through the grunt work, the rigor, and live it essentially to get that experience. And that's why, despite, and one thing I think you will also agree with Shirsha, and everyone can understand, is despite all skills, experiences, generative AI or not, uh, the skills acquired through work, the skill acquired through actually doing that, that is not replaceable. That is secondary to none. And that's why experience of 10 years, 20 years, 30 years is valued a lot over any other tool or AI or maybe domain that people have worked in, right?
Back to my point, Akash, that pick up contests, because you then are bringing yourself to that exposure as well. Like even without a formal job, you're adding lines to your profile there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, final question for you, Shisha. We have already held you back for quite a long time on a Friday evening. Is what would be your advice to people who are excited for tomorrow and at the same time are at a transition point like you once were in your career? How would you invite them into your world of analytics, big data analytics, and how would you tell them or guide them? If you were a mentor, imagine for a second to all of us, how would you guide us to maybe start our careers in big data analytics and maybe eventually get hired by you and your company?
It's very easy, but it's hard work. So what I'll advise is take a stock check of where you are, right? And what are these job openings asking for, right? Find out that difference, make a list of all those gaps in your profile today, and look at mechanisms to address those gaps. So it could be an additional elective if you're still studying. It could be an elective that you do either online or in your university. I don't know what that gap is, depends on that. It could be like you mentioned, internships that you do, which helps cover those gaps. It could even be maybe like an opportunity to do an unpaid internship. There are a few places where you get an opportunity to do that, because then that's experience that they give you and you could add into your resume. I won't exactly advise that because that takes away your time and it's not fair. But if you're really badly after that experience, so what does this mean, right? Like, what does this role look like? And so then that is something that maybe you could look at. There are contests, there are hackathons, like I mentioned, which can also help in addressing some of these gaps, because they force you to study and fill those gaps. And put a timeline to it. So let's say today they are asking you for a particular skill which you've not done. So like put a timeline to when you think you can maybe do a circle around it, right? And then maybe like a repetition or a revision around it. And then maybe like try to do a few online tests or certifications which could maybe help you assess where you stand with these gaps or the other asks before you start applying. I also think that Bangalore, and I'm talking about Bangalore, I hope it's the case in the other cities. I have to really look at the data. But Bangalore has a lot of startups who are looking for ready talent, right? They are looking for talent who can come and work with them. They're willing to guide them, but a lot of this research and this is the best way to do this analysis needs to be done by the candidate. So they're looking for trained folks who can kind of come and work with them and understand and co-develop this together, because they may not have such a formal setup yet. And that's a very good place to get that experience, right? And many big companies absolutely value that, you had that grit and endeavor to kind of do that, right? So maybe these are opportunities as well.
Absolutely. I mean, perfectly explained there, Shisha. That will help everyone over here. And from my side, especially, thank you for sparing your time of the day, especially on this lovely Friday evening with us. It has been a lovely experience talking to you, getting to know a whole lot of stuff from you, and also rethinking about what it is like to work, even at this point. That will surely help me personally, and I'm sure it will help everyone as well.
Even as I gave answers, it helped me. I remembered I hadn't done something like a gap analysis. So, so thank you for the questions and thank you for taking time out, Akash. Thank you to everyone.
Pleasure is all ours, Shisha. Thank you, everyone,
Thank you.
for attending as well. And thank you, Shisha. Have a great weekend ahead.
You too. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.